The market determines the price. Hey guys, it's Brad from probateresource.com. Probate Resource, we're a real estate solutions company, and we specialize in the world of probate and inheritance properties. We actually buy properties all over the U.S. I'm also a licensed agent in the state of Georgia, but I work with realtors all over the country, and we help people list and sell their properties that are in probate. You can either sell it to us for cash, or we'd be happy to help you list the property. So today I want to talk about price and what determines price and how you should price a property. And at the end of the day, the market is going to determine your price. Just because you think you want $300,000 for this house, it doesn't mean that that house is going to sell for $300,000. Ultimately, the market determines the price. Now, there's a reason why realtors and investors and all of us run comps. Comps are comparable sales. We look at other similar properties, and the big mistake a lot of agents and investors make is they don't understand what constitutes a similar property, a comparable property. You have to compare like for like, or you have to make adjustments to your property to make the values work out. And I see a lot of people make that mistake where they're not accurately running comps on a property. I analyze, a lot of deals, right? So I have purchased hundreds of deals over the years, which means I have probably analyzed tens of thousands of deals. I bet you I run comps 10 or 15 times a day on properties, every day. Sometimes on the weekends, I'm running comps because sometimes we'll have appointments on the weekends with sellers. So I've gotten pretty good at analyzing a property and determining what I think the value might be. And if you have inherited a property or you're selling a property and you're trying to figure out how to price this property, you need to either look at similar properties in the neighborhood, or you need to hire a realtor or speak with an investor to help you understand the value of this property. Because if you don't, and you list that property out on the market and you list that property too high, in the current market we're in today, I'm making this video in summer of 2023. Now, the past couple years before this, it was a different market, and you could pretty much throw anything against the wall and it would stick, and people were paying stupid amounts of money. But since interest rates rose up last summer, the market kind of reset. And nowadays, listing a property at the correct price is more critical than ever. So if you're an agent, you need to make sure that you're adequately or accurately pricing your properties. And if you're a seller, you need to understand that today, price matters more than anything. Because if you list a property on the market today for too much money, it's the kiss of death. And what do I mean by that? So if you list the property too high, you'll get a little bit of activity in it. But what'll happen is after a while, people will stop looking at it because it's overpriced. And then it will sit, and it will sit, and it will sit, and it will sit on the market. And then after a little while on the market, people are going to start to question, hey, what's wrong with that house? Why hasn't it sold yet? Now, those people that I mentioned are typically people who are not in the real estate business. And maybe they're just looking at Zillow and they see this house that's been on the market for 3 or 4 or 5 months. And they question what's wrong with the property. Now, if an agent or an investor like me that's in the business and doing this every day, we look at it and we'll just say, well, that's because it's overpriced. There's probably nothing wrong with the house other than the price. But to the average consumer who's not in the real estate business, they're looking at that house and they're saying, there's something wrong with that house. That's why it hasn't sold. The reality is it hasn't sold because it was listed too high to begin with, and it sat and it sat and it sat on the market, and the sellers have an unrealistic expectation about what their house is going to sell for, and really they're doing themselves and their agent a disservice by leaving this house on the market at an inflated price. Now, like I mentioned, a couple years ago, that strategy, you could get away with it. It didn't matter. You were going to get an offer on that house no matter what. Now, since the market has changed a little bit, that's not the case. Buyers are being more selective than ever about what they're buying. And why is that? Well, right now, interest rates are kind of high compared to what they were before. Ironically, the interest rates today are the same interest rate that I got when I bought my first house. So it's kind of crazy. I don't think they're really that high, but they are higher than what everyone's used to. Are we ever going to see 3 or 4% mortgage interest rates again? I don't think so. Maybe we will one day, but I wouldn't put your hopes on it, right? So if you are listing a property, make sure that you're listing it at the right price, and make sure you are arriving at that right price by adequately comparing it to other properties that are similar or like your property. So I see this all the time where we went on an appointment the other day, and this house was in an older 1960s, 1970s, like late 1960s, early 1970s is kind of when these houses were built in this neighborhood. And the house we went and looked at was basically one of the smaller ranch homes in the neighborhood. It was a ranch. It was a single story. It was on a crawl space, and it had a carport. And the seller told us, she said, well, I want to get X amount because so-and-so down the street sold their house for this price. And I said, wow, okay, that sounds great. So I looked up the house that she talked about. And the house down the street was 2,700 square feet. Her house was just shy of 2,100 square feet. So that house was 600 square feet larger than hers. That house had a 2-car garage on it. Her house just had a carport. That other house had a finished basement in it, so it had more space than her house. And that other house was a 2-story, and the other house was in a cul-de-sac. Hers was on the main drag through the neighborhood. Oh, also, and that other house was completely updated. The people who had owned that house or were selling that house, everything was modern. It had a modern kitchen. It had modern bathrooms. It had modern fixtures and appliances and finishes and flooring and paint colors. Everything about that house was current to this day. Her house was straight out of 1968. Everything was original from 1968. Nothing had been changed. It still had the original appliances. The carpet had been changed at one point in time, but the carpet was worn out. It still had ugly old wallpaper. It still had ugly old crazy multicolored tile. It still had old clunky dark wood cabinets. Nothing had been updated in that house other than the carpet had been changed at some point in time. So we said, look, I know you want that price, but your house is not comparable to that house down the street. Your house is not updated at all. It's much smaller. It doesn't have a garage. It's not in a cul-de-sac. It has all these other things that detract from the value. So, and the crazy part was the house in the cul-de-sac in the back of the neighborhood was kind of an anomaly because all of the other homes in that neighborhood were kind of similar to hers in that a lot of them hadn't been that updated. It was in sort of an area that was not an up-and-coming neighborhood at all. If anything, it was sort of a declining value neighborhood. So there were not a lot of updated houses. A lot of them were still very dated looking. And if you looked at the other houses in the neighborhood, they were all selling for less than the really nice house in the back of the neighborhood. So we sort of had to be the bearer of bad news to the seller and say, look, we can only offer you X because when we're all done with our rehab on this house and we go in and we get rid of all the wallpaper, we modernize the kitchen, we put new modern flooring in the house, we paint the inside and out, we clean up also the landscaping, the house, like the backyard was like a jungle. I needed to send my buddy in there with this big forestry mulcher grinder thing in to just clear the backyard. It was like a jungle. So we sort of had to adjust this seller's expectations, and sometimes we have to do that. And I don't mean that in a negative way. She just was not being realistic about the value of her house, and we sort of had to help her sort of realize that this house was not of that value. So haven't nailed the deal down yet. Don't ultimately know whether she's going to accept our offer or not. We did make the offer to her. We're waiting on a response. If she doesn't offer, that's okay. If she doesn't accept, that's okay. No harm, no foul. We gave it our best shot. And that's what we do on every deal. We give it our best shot. So again, at the end of the day, the market is going to determine your price, not you, not your realtor. The market determines your price. So I hope this video helps out a little bit. I'm Brad with probateresource.com. Thanks for checking out this video. If you do want to work with us, you have a house that you've inherited that you want to sell, we can make you a cash offer on the house. We buy it from you. directly, make it easy and as quick as possible. Or if you want to go the traditional route and you want to list that property on the market, I'm a realtor myself. If you're in the state of Georgia, I can help you out with that. If you're not in the state of Georgia, I actually have a fantastic network of realtors that I work with all throughout the country, and I can refer you to one of my realtors. And again, this isn't going to be like I'm going to give your number out and someone's going to call you. You're going to get like 18 phone calls. No, literally, you're going to get like one phone call from one strategic realtor that I work with in your market. If you're in a larger market, I might have one or two people, but it's not going to be like a gazillion phone calls that you're going to get. So if you're interested in working with us, go to probateresource.com, fill out the form there on the website, and a member of our team will be with you as soon as possible. So thanks again for checking out this video. Have a great day. Bye-bye.